I am live on YouTube. Let's see how live I am, but I am live on YouTube. Let's see what happens. Okay. Okay. All right. Anyway, yeah, Mander or whoever, just let folks know there's another room open. I just opened it. All right. In any case, my point with telling about the realtor story was that this is happening all over the country. I've been telling you guys for like a week. Hey, Alec, I've been telling you guys for like a week now. Trump cutting all this money is taking, if the money is truly being cut, it's taking money out of the economy. When Trump and Elon cut this budgets, they're firing people. People who are fired no longer get money. People who no longer get money stop spending money at the grocery store, gasoline, right? Clothing, travel. That slows the economy down. My realtor friend, perfect example, he just lost $24,000 because Trump's budget cuts basically cut the income of this family who was going to buy a house. And the budget cuts took away their work, their project, killed their project. They're no longer getting paid. They couldn't buy the house. He had the house in hand. He had $24,000. The $24,000 is now gone. He has $24,000 less this year. He very well could spend, my realtor friend could spend less money now. I mean, if you knew you had $24,000 cash coming in from a deal as a realtor, and then you lost it, you now are probably going to spend less money in the next few months. When he spends less money, it means the grocery store is going to get less money from him. It means, again, maybe he was going to buy a car. Maybe he was going to travel, right? I mean, it's the gifts you buy for people, you buy less gifts. I mean, there's a ripple effect. I think I recall from economics, it's called like the velocity of money. Is it M2? I always forget the velocity of money. But the idea that like $1 has this effect. People are saying domino effect, but it is like I spend $1 and I buy a flower from you. You're the flower lady. You've now got my $1. You take my $1 and you buy a coffee. The coffee shop takes the $1 and uses it to buy roast coffee or a coffee machine from the coffee maker in Kentucky. The coffee machine place takes your $1 and splits it up to pay its employees. The employees get the money and they go and they pay the gas bill right? I mean, it's when you start to take money out of the economy, there's a ripple effect that goes on. It's incredibly dangerous. And especially now that this week we had, it's Tuesday now. So it'll be last week, we had two big, very bad indicators in the economy. One was that inflation is going up, but the inflation indicators were not good at all. The second problem is that the economy could slow down because consumer spending is dropping. When consumer spending drops, you've got a real problem in the economy because 2/3 of our economy, in the US at least, is consumer spending. So 2/3 of our entire economy is based on you and me spending money. When you and I either lose our jobs or we get worried about the economy and we start saving our money, well, you save your money, you're not spending it. That has such a profound impact on the economy because, again, 2/3 of our economy is you and me spending money, is consumer spending. We stop spending money, the economy starts going down. As I said before, you stop spending money, businesses don't make as much money. Businesses who don't make as much money lay off staff. All of a sudden, people are getting fired, right? People who get fired don't spend money. So it starts to cause a bigger problem. The fact that inflation is going up is a bigger problem because when inflation goes up, you raise interest rates. But when you raise interest rates, what happens? The economy goes down. Interest rates takes money out of the economy. It makes the economy slow down, but the economy is already slowing down. Typically, when the economy slows, you want to lower interest rates to get the economy going again. But when you lower interest rates, inflation goes up. So you never lower interest rates if inflation is a problem. And we found out last week inflation is a problem. This is a mess for Trump. He should be focusing on it. And what worries me is, and again, also worries me about Democrats and good Republicans, how many times do you hear Trump talking about the economy? I mean, I've talked about inflation a lot the last week. I've talked about growth in the economy or the lack thereof, about interest rates. Trump never talks about the economy. He never talks about inflation. He was elected about inflation. He doesn't talk about inflation. He's talking about this vendetta against federal workers, right? mean, he wasn't elected to, and by the way, this gets interesting too. And again, this is what drives me crazy because Democrats are so bad at this. Thank you, Kennedy, at the messaging. Trump and Elon Musk keep saying, we have to cut the federal government because the deficit's too big. They never admit that Donald Trump was one of the main reasons the deficit got so big. Trump spent he added $7 trillion, more than 7 trillion with a T, to the national debt when he was president in 4 years. Joe Biden added a little under 4. Now, the Trump people like to say, oh, that's because we had COVID, because COVID was such a disaster. It cost a lot of money. Well, COVID was a disaster. We could talk about why COVID was such a disaster, why COVID got out of control. We could talk about people who didn't take COVID seriously, right? If we want to talk about it, and when you don't take COVID seriously, the disease spreads and causes more damage to the economy. We could talk about that. But when you look at the actual data, and you can Google this and you'll see the data, you look at how much was added to the deficit by Biden, it's like this much. How much was added by Trump, it's like this much. But, I'll do this. This is Biden, this is Trump. But they are correct. A significant chunk of Trump's deficit was because of COVID. You take out the COVID deficit, and what are you left with? Trump still had a significant portion of the debt that he did much more than Biden because Trump had huge tax cuts. Go Google it and you will see. Taking out COVID, Trump added much more to the debt than Biden did. Well, it's worse than that. They are telling us that they have to cut all of these federal programs because of the deficit. This past weekend, the Republicans approved legislation doing the sort of groundwork of how much they're planning on spending this year. They want to do more tax cuts and what it's going to cost. Their estimate for their tax cuts that they put in the budget was a little small because they realize they can't afford to do all the tax cut Donald Trump wants. Their tax cuts are only going to cost the budget because when they cut taxes, we lose money, right? Because you're not taking money in. The tax cuts the Republicans are planning are going to cost the budget $4.7 trillion, according to the Republicans themselves this weekend in the House of Representatives. House Republicans said Trump's tax cuts are going to cost us $4.7 trillion. Okay? Usually, tax cuts cost $1.5 to $2 trillion. Last time Trump's tax cuts cost us, he claimed 1.5. It was more like 2 trillion, which is a lot of money. But, and going back, the Bush tax cuts years ago, 1.25 maybe trillion. Tax cuts don't cost 4.7 trillion. They obviously do, but that's an insane figure. That's an insane figure. It is spread out over 10 years. Yeah, good point. Big Daddy says it's spread out over 10 years. Guess what else is spread out over 10 years? The normal tax cut figure. Republican tax cuts in the past have always been $1 to $2 trillion over 10 years. Always $1 to $2 trillion. Now it's going to be 4.7 trillion. That's 2.5 times the tax cut that they normally do. They are claiming we don't have money. And they're not only doing more tax cuts, the tax cuts this time are going to be 2.5 times larger, 2.5 times larger than normal.